I'm Sandra Kelly. I'm at the Goodwood Museum and Gardens. I'm a native Floridian, and I'm about to tell you a story that actually started here at Goodwood. Many years ago, before the Civil War, there was a great family, a family wealthy beyond anybody's imagination. They were the Crooms family. Hardy Crooms had left North Carolina and come to Tallahassee and had built Goodwood and was turning it into an art piece filled with works of art, beautiful paintings, fine furniture, and had lovely, lovely parties. One of his brother, who lived in Newington, North Carolina's daughters came down, Elizabeth Jane Crooms, and she spent some time here. One afternoon, she was sitting in the parlor embroidering. She had a lovely, exquisitely lovely handkerchief, and she was doing E, C, J. And she was just about to plant that C into the middle when a young man walked in. Handsome he was. His name was Samuel Bellamy. His brother owned a nearby Bellamy plantation, and Samuel took sight of her and fell in love, even though she was just a child and he was 9 years her senior. He told her then, "Elizabeth Jane, if I were you, I would embroider a C in that handkerchief, because I intend to marry you someday." She blushed prettily and didn't really know what to say to the handsome young man, but she did like the way he looked. Sure enough, after he graduated his law studies, he found her in Newington, North Carolina, courted her properly, asked her to marry him, and was given permission by the family. They lived there on the family properties for several years, where Elizabeth Jane had her first child, Alexander. Not long after, Samuel bought property near Marianna, Florida, in West Florida, and they moved down to Rock Point Plantation, Rock Cave. There are many cave systems in Marianna, and all in that area near the Chipola River. It was rich land. In fact, that area, Jackson County, at that time, before the Civil War, was one of the richest places, the richest counties in the state. The Indians were all gone. The British and the French were gone. And the land was there for the taking, and they made good with it. Elizabeth's father had given her 80 slaves, and those slaves walked with her in the carriage all the way down to Florida. Once they were there, they began making Rock Cave Plantation a phenomenal success. Unfortunately, a malaria fever outbreak happened and Elizabeth Jane took ill. They took her to the Bellamy plantation next door, where Edward, who was a doctor and Samuel's brother, did everything he could to bring her back, but Elizabeth Jane would not recover. Just a week later, baby Alexander died too. It took Samuel, it took his heart, it took his mind, it took his ambition. He was totally disheartened by her death and the loss of his son. To honor her memory, she had always wanted a home in Marianna, where a lot of the plantation owners built townhomes. He built that townhome for her. The modern day courthouse sits there now, but I remember seeing it. It was still there when I was a child, and I saw it often. He couldn't handle her loss. He made crazy investments. He invested heavily in the Union Bank, which is now still in Tallahassee. And when it crashed, and all his fortunes crashed with it, he took his own life, cutting his throat with his hunting knife, and died on the docks of the river where he had prospered so mightily. There's another aspect to that story, which has its roots in the same story with the Bellamy family, with the Crooms family. And we call it the ghost of Bellamy Bridge. You see, the ghost haunted everyone because lights would come out late at night. And the ghost that particularly got everyone's attention had to do with the young bride. It was said the bride and the groom had married there at the Bellamy plantation, and that the bride had danced the evening away in her lovely gown with its hoops. It was a cool night, and so they had lanterns and candles all over the big room. She and Samuel danced the night away, and he swung her around to celebrate their love and their marriage, and her gown, the big hoops, lifted up and hit the fire, and her gown caught on fire. And Elizabeth Jane screamed to the top of her lungs and ran out of the house as that fire consumed her gown over the red Persian carpet that was in the hallway, down the majestic steps into the front yard, and rolled over and over in the sand and the dirt and the dust, and tried to put it out. She could not, and she gathered up the shreds of her gown and ran to the bridge and died there. They rolled her body in that red rug, took her to the Bellamy plantation, where they tried so hard to restore her. But nothing Dr. Bellamy did could bring Elizabeth Jane back to life. It was said that her handsome, gay young husband lost his will to live then. He built the beautiful townhome in Mariana. He never stayed there. And not long after, when the Union Bank collapsed, his life was over in his mind. He slashed his neck and he died. Elizabeth Jane died in 1853. A beautiful woman at the height of her powers. Her husband, handsome as could be, some years later died, gone at the height of his wealth and happiness. He could no longer live. He could not survive her loss. Years later, people began to see a ball of fire erupting near the grave, which was right close to the Bellamy Bridge, one of the only bridges of its type in America. Every year, about the time of her death, the ball of fire erupts from the grave and runs towards the water and jumps in to try to stop the ever-consuming fire. They said it was Elizabeth Jane. She could not really die. To this day, people go there during Halloween and try to stay all night watching for the ball of fire. Have you ever seen it? Not me, but I don't doubt that it's real. Thank you.